What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Headhunter Hideout. I'm excited today. We've got a guest all the way up in Canada, so we're going international today. And I'd like to welcome Julian to the show. He works for a company called NewFound Recruiting, and they recently won an award for being one of the fastest growing companies in Canada, which during this time is obviously huge. So I'm going to bring Dan on. Dan, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. How's it going?
It's going well, man. It's going well. How about yourself?
Not bad. It's nice and rainy here today, so we'll take it.
Nice, man. That sounds like, I don't know if I told you this. I'm from the UK originally.
Yeah.
That's all we have over there. So I'll show you my outside right now. You can kind of see.
There we go. Looks a lot better. Nice.
Yeah, we're coming into to fall time. Or do you guys call it fall, or do you guys call it autumn?
No, we're good with fall. Yeah, so fall and français is printemps. Because
very nice. So tell me, just so everyone knows out there, Dan is and I put this on the post, but Dan comes from like the sports marketing entertainment world, and you were in that world for what, about 10 to 12 years?
Yeah, almost 10. So it was we a couple months away from being 10 years in that world. So
awesome, man.
It was a good time, and started at the bottom and kind of climbed my way up, and then got out of there.
Yeah, you were managing, in that time, you were like managing a team of 9 or 10 salespeople, building up the sales force for the company you were with.
Yeah, exactly. The Ottawa Senators, the NHL team. So they got a big draft on Tuesday so I'll shout them out right now. But we building an inside sales team and also a couple of territory teams there, and ticket sales, trying to fill up the building, which at times was a little difficult. But
I'm sure.
It taught us a lot.
Probably even more difficult right now. So it's a toss-up of what's harder, doing that or recruiting right now, because everyone's taking a hit. But
you know what? They'll have an empty arena for at least a few more months here. So it's not a tough job to do. It's just unfortunately they don't have a job to do right now. So
So you did that for about 10 years, and you've been in the recruiting game now for coming up 5 to 6 years.
No, so it's been 3 years now. It's
3 years. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not that old yet, but yeah, it's been 3 years. Joined on NewFound Recruiting 3 years ago in a kind of a sales and management space, and obviously we built some nice things from there.
Awesome, man. And now you're managing director over there. So tell me a little bit about how you transitioned from that sports marketing arena into recruiting. I'd love to hear a little bit about that story.
Yeah, I always say, like, I want to be either Jerry Maguire or like a Billy Bean. So we put both movie references for non-sports people. You can watch Moneyball or Jerry Maguire, but I love the negotiation aspect. I love, be able to represent an individual in that case, or build a team out. So recruiting's always been something that's interesting to me as well, as I was getting along in sports, and you were getting more and more calls from recruiters as your career progressed, and trying to get you to leave. And I'd always ask them about their jobs, which is kind of the opposite. Now I understand it's probably the opposite of what they wanted to do in that conversation, but I was curious, and I was asking them what they were up to and how the job was. So it was one of the spaces I identified when I said, I'm kind of done working in sports and working 40-some game nights a year, which is fun when you're a younger guy, but a young family around, it's not as interesting at times. So so I spoke to the guys in NewFound Recruiting, and we found a fit. The transition was difficult because it was IT, and I did some HTML back in high school, and that's about it, I'll say. It was a lot of learning about technologies and a lot of understanding how technologies fit together. So even when you learn a technology, hey, okay, Java programming, okay, that's nice and easy. But then what else goes into what else goes in that toolkit for a Java programmer? So that was probably the toughest part for me. But the easy part is transitioning relationships, right? It's being a human, and having conversations is the same in any industry you go into. So that never really suffered, and that kind of helped me out. And at the centers, we were selling very much something that was not a need for anyone. You were selling tickets to a sporting event that they could use for their business, but it was also the first thing they could cut from their business if they had to make some cuts. In recruitment and conversations with business individuals, now you're talking about their biggest need and probably their biggest priorities are people. So it's either product or their people, and it should be their people most of the time. But so kind of like selling ice to the Eskimos, and then transition to something that was easier to have a conversation about, just a bit more difficult to get in front of the right individuals in this case. So honestly, 10 years of selling tickets, which again is a want and not a luxury, made the transition go a lot easier.
So I'm curious too. I mean, so when you started out in recruiting, you're coming in, obviously you've got the sales experience, you got the management experience, you've probably done a decent amount of recruiting for your own sales team. When you came into recruiting, were you just primarily focused on sales, or were you focused on kind of the whole picture? How was that adjustment?
Yeah, it was, they wanted to transition me in the proper fashion. So it was definitely business development, trying to go get individuals to obviously trust us with the recruitment, and then doing some recruitment more on the side, outside the 9 to 5. So I could have the conversations with the candidates and learn more about them and learn more about the roles, right? Because even sometimes you go see an HR individual, they might not know exactly every specification of that IT role. So be able to have the conversation with a candidate about the role that you now have, that you're now recruiting for, gives you a more in-depth learning. So I was doing that on the side. It was, applying what was easy to me, the business development aspect, and having conversations. And then, okay, how do I learn more? I also had some great mentors and got to shadow different individuals on different types of meetings. But it was definitely a growth stage. I wanted to be in management there. They wanted me to be in management, but they wanted it to go the right way, and not for me to come in as a guy that sold season tickets at a hockey team and go, this is how I do things. So it was a lot of learning. And luckily 10 years of sales kind of made one aspect of it easier, so I could learn the other stuff.
And it's funny because I think a lot of people, when they come into the recruiting industry, the sales aspect, probably the most challenging from the get-go. But then obviously you have the recruiting side, which over the last, 5-10 years or so has gotten extremely difficult, really, really, really competitive. Mm-hmm. And so I think, sometimes you can find getting the job orders, it's not necessarily the most difficult, but then it's actually executing, it's building those relationships. And so what I guess with NewFound Recruiting, obviously you guys were established in, I think it's like 2011. So you've been around, kind of really have probably rode like a lot of the kind of where the market's gone, and obviously everything's been going really, really well. I'm sure in recruiting for the last 10 years. How have you guys adapted during this season of COVID, and like how have you kind of changed? Have you changed anything? Have you had to pivot? What have you guys been doing that's different?
Yeah, well, the first difference is we're such a collaborative environment where we were dropping in at each other's desks when we were in the office, and immediately we were March 14th was probably the Friday where we said, hey, everyone take your stuff home just in case. And then actually I probably got the dates wrong, but it was that Friday there. And then, the Monday, I think we had a few individuals come in, and then by lunchtime, the office was shut down. And oddly enough, never to be seen again, because we were moving buildings in April. So a lot of people said goodbye to the office without knowing it, right, in that COVID time. So the collaboration's been the difficult part, as I'm sure it's been with everyone. We quickly, went to Zoom, quickly utilized the technology aspects that we did have with our CRM to run the visual board meetings. And I'm sure a lot of people watching this have those board meetings in the morning, those type of scrum meetings where you talk about the biggest priority roles, what's going on, what's deadlines, different things like that. So we started doing that Zoom. We started using different technologies to kind of generate that visual board that we hand wrote onto a living, breathing document that we could quickly update. But for us, it's been being out there and being present on LinkedIn. When we had a quick conversation last week, just because we didn't want to waste too many topics. The one thing I told you is, we're great at networking. We're great at getting out there, and we have a nice tech hub in our area where we can bump into different individuals, get some referrals, find out what's going on, and all of a sudden it was, okay, you got these individuals that love to network, love to have conversations, and now you can only use this thing right here, phone, if anyone, and your emails and your LinkedIn. So we want to be more present on LinkedIn, definitely, and that's an important thing right now. Aside from that, it was just learning how to communicate internally. We've definitely spent a lot of time and effort on technology and improving how we utilize our technology, but we've been doing that over the last 2 years. So Did we speed some things up? Absolutely. Are we looking at new solutions for all of our tracking and dashboards and everything else? Yes, but those were things we had on the docket, but maybe just some speed ups there that I'm not going to bore everyone about, but just look at that technology aspect.
Or do you think are you guys looking at, kind of coming out of this, or as things transition, are you looking at staying remote, or are you like, we need to be in the office? Like, have you seen any kind of change in production, or how's that been, and what have you noticed?
It's funny because honestly, in Canada, we kind of started to get back to some normalcy in July. With we put the cases down, and our office is open. You can go in, and we have a rotation of when you can go in, because we don't want everyone to come in on the same day, obviously. But so we've gotten some of that collaboration back with some masks on and different things when we're not at our desk. But we do have that open now. We're heading into a different stage here in Canada as the cases are well, actually, I should say skyrocketing for us, but the numbers are still not atrocious. But it'll be interesting to see what we are mandated to do, and we've kind of talked about it already as a management team. I think coming out of this, we'll be more agile. The ability to work from home will be there. The ability to work from wherever, but we'll still have the physical office, and we'll still have that collaboration. When you're trying to put together a bid with multiple different candidates, with different recruiters working on it and everything else, it's getting easier to do a Zoom, but there's something to that day-to-day collaboration that you kind of need, right? So it's I don't know. I think it'll be more agile, but I think people need it. And even our own staff, we're like, hey, stay home. You don't have to come in. Come on in once in a while. And it's like, and some of them were like, can I come in every day? It's like, no, you cannot come in every day, but thank you. But you kind of need that. As I'm talking to you, I'm sitting here in my study, and I'm looking at a couple of kids' toys and a couple of things like that. So sometimes you got to try to keep your focus right here, but right over my eye, I can see something I should be putting away right now at home. You don't have that same distraction at the office. So I don't know if our generation, and I think we're about the same age, I don't know if our generation is bred to be fully at home. Maybe Gen Z will be better at it, but our generation still likes the shackles of an office a little bit, still likes going in and just having those four walls or the cubicle or whatever it is that you have.
I mean, when I think about it, the absolute ideal is just having the choice, because I think, depending on what industry you're in, but for example, with recruiting, if you've got a computer, you've got a hookup to the internet, should be good. You've got a phone, should be good. But there is also like the motivational aspect of it. There's the environment, there's the energy that you draw off of other people. And, if you're just starting in recruiting, it's a very lonely world to be just at home by yourself and like figuring out, is this a good candidate? Is this not a good candidate? Oh my gosh, like this guy got mad at me. Like, is this normal? And so I think if you're bringing people into the industry, it's helpful to have that. But at the same time, we all know, like, winter comes around, snow's coming down, it's super hard to get to the office. That can alleviate a lot of that, but it's a choice, and I think even with maybe like younger people, not, maybe Gen Z will be more based from home, but I still think there's always it's that energy and it's that culture, and if you've got a good culture, you got a good workplace, it shouldn't be an issue. I think it's telling when people are like, yeah, I never want to see anyone I work with. And it's like, okay, well, maybe you just don't like anyone you work with. Yeah. And we got Sean here. Sean just says, I love the office, work from home for 6 months. I love the structure. And then he makes a good point too. He just talks about also nice to have the separation with the work-life balance. Yeah. And I think that's a piece that people don't get. Like when I first started working remote, I thought this is awesome. I'm going to be able to chill. I'm going to be able to go to the coffee shop all the time. And it's going to be relaxing. No, it meant 18, 19-hour work days. You do more work if you're a driven person. So I think for a lot of people, having that separation is huge. See, James said, having people get mad at you is normal. He knows me well. It's I guess he's talking about obviously in recruiting, calling people. So it sounds like you guys have a kind of a collaborative team approach to recruiting. How exactly do you guys, do you full desk or sales and recruiting? How do you have it set up?
We kind of have two setups. So we both work in Ottawa. You work with a lot of public institutions bidding on RFPs and different things. So our public team is BD and then recruiting, so separated. Then our private permanent team is essentially doing a 360 desk. There's a lot more collaboration with the actual private company, with the HR individual, with the manager of IT, whichever individual in that space. So it's nice to kind of get both sides and get that relationship. In the in the contract space, the temporary space, a lot of people have different words for it, but it's the account manager needs to understand the account and get to know the different intricacies of different departments or crown corporations or big companies sending us different RFPs, and then the recruiters have to spend their time kind of look at it. So it's collaborative. You talked about culture, our culture was fully based on being in the office, as most people, right? It's this is what we do in the office. This is how we celebrate wins. This is how we celebrate big months. This is what we do. And you talked about culture, and it's when you no longer see each other every day, how do you translate that? And that was probably the culture aspect was probably our biggest trying to figure that out, right? The biggest thing about COVID, I would say, because everything else you said, laptop, phone, desk, the kitchen table, counter, whatever you want to be on, couch. But so we started instituting things like weekly Zooms as a team, 4:00 Fridays, then grab yourself a drink and, let's do a Zoom. And we did like get to know your coworkers with some, funny questions and different things like that. So that was a bit of the way we translate culture for those who are still trying to figure out things from home. But I found that was the most difficult thing, as you said, and it's collaboration's one thing and the culture. And as you said, we like each other. It's not a space where we don't like each other at work. So, it was nice to have my kids around and spend a bit more time with my kids. But at 5 o'clock, let's say the computer gets shut down. It's like, all right, let's make supper. Okay, let's do this. Let's do that. And then like 7:30 comes, you're like, you never decompressed from your day. Yeah. And then you're just as likely to just go right back to your laptop, right? And not decompress and not, have that, I don't know what we call that spatial, just the empty brain where
separation almost.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I think that's an issue even just with recruiting in general, because so much of what we do is outside of work hours. So obviously, if you've got candidates, some of them will want to meet with you during the day, but a lot of them they want to meet after hours. So I think we have to be really careful, particularly in recruiting. But I mean, I'm curious. So you guys have the Zoom meetings. Did you guys get on like any kind of like Slack channel or anything where you could kind of chat throughout the day, or how did you manage that?
We tried everything early on, and it was kind of the nice thing about it too is we're trying these different technologies that our partners are using. So myself, I don't think I'd use Zoom more than a couple times, right? And now I was trying it out with my staff. We use Slack. Some love Slack, some didn't, and then we incorporated Microsoft Teams. So we had the Microsoft Teams. If I can be controversial, I don't like their platform as much as Zoom on the video chat. Yeah, exactly. So I love the internal communication, though. It's almost a texting. You put groups together. Here's a role. Okay, this is kind of the group. Oh, got to go on a call with all of them. So we love that aspect of it. We even tried one, I forget the name now, that's made for video games. One of our guys is a big video game guy, World of Warcraft type individual, and was talking all about this one platform, and I forget what it's called. I wish I saw it on my phone. And we tried it for a bit, and I said, you know what, no, can we just stick to the basics? But it did give us a chance to try every platform. And, that's important because you got to teach your candidates, the individuals that you're helping out, how to use this platform. You're becoming more informed about it, right? And even there's a lot of individuals that don't inside companies that we're now setting up interviews for, video interviews, and we're walking them through these because we've used them every single day. So that was the beauty of trying different things as well. Kind of Discord is a name. James just put that up if you want to flash that up. But yeah, Discord was the name of that app that we tried out there.
Yeah, like we'll show this for so, and I think that is pretty cool though. I mean, it's pretty cool that you would, especially being in the IT space. I'm sure a lot of IT, and I think of like a lot of marketing professionals, like they just have to keep that collaboration, and you need to have that communication. And it's funny, like I think within recruiting, at least my experience with it, a lot of work is just done over the phone. And so, I know one of the companies I worked for, they were really, really big into like having Zoom calls with clients and bringing prospects through with a Zoom call and running over their process. And it was a great way to get to know people. And so they use Zoom a lot. And I worked at a different company where it was like everything was done over the phone. And you might not see them, you might just be doing, hundreds of thousands of dollars over the phone.
Yep.
And so I think it is nice to see that, because I think particularly with Zoom, if you have a Zoom meeting one-on-one with a prospect, it does, it just give you a different feel. And obviously it's not the person to person feel that's obviously the best, but it is nice too, because if you're looking to do business maybe across the country or internationally, Zoom is a powerful way to be able to prospect and do sales. So I can definitely see that, and I like how you guys are adapting. It sounds like you have a pretty kind of flexible atmosphere in terms of people just being able to say, hey, why don't we try this, or why don't we do this? Is that kind of how you operate? I mean, it sounds like if someone has an idea, you kind of run with it. How do you typically kind of work that within this time?
Yeah, we love entrepreneurs, and we know we can't possibly know everything as a management team, right? So anybody who comes to us with an idea, we actually have a quarterly contest. We actually just got all the submissions a couple of days ago. It's essentially a Be Better contest, and every employee sends in one idea on how the company can be better. Nice and simple, right? But it's it can be somebody suggested a slide for the office, kind of jokingly, but just like, hey, something fun like a slide for the office, because everyone knows Shopify. They've got an office in downtown Ottawa that has a bit massive slide in it. So it's kind of that joke, but there's some great ideas that come out of that as well. Like, hey, have we looked into this technology? Have we looked? One of the things that came out, and it's like we're great at communicating, but it would be nice to have something like a monthly newsletter. Just highlighting some of these, these big deals and everything else, since we're not in the office. And I was like, okay, we think we're experts at communicating, right? You just said, oh, you're agile. You guys are listening. We think we've done great, but it's okay, but we're not doing enough, right? And maybe there's another step that doesn't take that many man hours to do, that we can send out and just keep everyone informed. And it's, I guess not everyone crosses each other, right? So there's things like that come out of it. We're always listening. Steve, the managing partner, has always said, he can't know everything. He wants you to come in with the ideas, and that was one of the things that they liked about me when I came in. That's something that I've kind of passed along as well, is don't be shy to give an idea. And we've got account executives that report to me, but have more knowledge about spaces than I do. And I love to sit in on their meetings and coach them, but really be picking up a lot of the information as well and going, oh, that's good, right? So I think you can improve with everyone around you. So we'll always listen. We'll just always listen to everyone.
So when you guys bring on new people, do you kind of have a balance of people who don't have industry experience, or do you look for people who have industry experience? Like when you're bringing on new team members?
We're figuring that out. So that's the tough part. I think in Ottawa, it's a very competitive space. There's a lot of recruitment firms. And I think it's difficult to get the individuals with experience that also have what is in our culture, and that are also, A or B players, right? So it's a tough balance. We top grade our interviews, so we look at what skills we want, how we want to hire, and we base our questions around that. So it's right now, I'd say more recently we looked outside the industry and had some success, but it's definitely nice to get someone in the industry and maybe reduce the training time, reduce the the uphill to getting that first close and getting everything like that. But it worked with me. So I think if I can replicate what I did with myself and find individuals that have similar characteristics, can I do it again? And most likely, let's face it, I probably have now I'm going to blank on the word, but I probably look for that as well at times and have to erase that own, why am I blanking on that word? But, the little blinding side of myself of looking for someone like myself because I had success, right? Yeah. So I have to take that blinder off and go, okay, what else? What other type of individuals can I go look for? In other words, both. Long answer to say both, but we do like to have a balance. As long as you have a strong team internally that can train and individuals internally that have done it, you can go on the outside. Now, if you're starting to, if you get poached, if individuals leave for other industries, different things like that, well, that's where you might need to look for someone who's got the experience.
Experience, yeah. So, okay, you bring someone in with no experience. Do you throw them on a 360 desk, or do you have them focus on recruiting or sales? Like, how do you bring somebody on with zero experience?
We've kind of changed our habits there too in the last 9 months, but more than likely, we would start them as recruiters. If it's if it's a business development type individual that's got that experience, one of the things I discussed earlier with you is I was lucky to have a certain network in business development where I could spend some time recruiting outside my work hours, right? And we all know there's no outside the work hours in this type of space, but if we can have that individual speak to candidates, get to know more about technologies, get to know more about what candidates are looking for, that's probably the fastest training. You said it. These times are different, but sometimes it's easier to get the job order than to get the candidate to fill that job order. So if you can really learn what candidates are looking for, how they work, like there's so many different roles in IT. It sounds so simple, IT recruiting, right? A programmer is a programmer. Absolutely not even like the job titles. They're not the same, right? So I would say our strategy is more to bring them in on the recruitment side and then design their path from there. If they want to stay in recruiting, great. If they want to come into business development or do a 360, great. And we'll kind of guide them that way. And obviously we have our own bias, was the word I was looking for earlier, but we have our own bias from when we hired them. But we also have 3 different managers in those departments. So I've always told them, like, the best thing that can happen is the 3 of us are sitting around a boardroom fighting for someone, right? So
no, I love it. I love it. Well, I think one of the big challenges with recruiting, at least I see, is like for people coming into the industry, there's kind of that mentality, and I've seen this posted on LinkedIn even recently, that it's very sink or swim. So it's, you get your initial training you on the basics, sourcing, cold calling, all those types of things. And then it's literally like, just figure it out. And I think because traditionally that's how people have done it. It's been, you figure it out through the conversations. And that definitely is a viable way to train up. And I think in a lot of industries, that is how you have to train up, by just doing. The challenge is like right now, I mean, it's high emotion and it's high burnout. And I think over the last 5 years, I've just seen so many people come into the industry, and really to be a good recruiter, I mean, it takes a couple of years to really feel comfortable in what you're doing. It's just so many different aspects. Like there's counter offers, there's rejected offers, there's people that you place and then they leave and you got to do a guarantee. So there's so many things that can go wrong. And so it's really refreshing to just hear different approaches. And I think one of the best approaches is to have somebody either focusing on BD or focusing on recruitment. And kind of like, obviously there has to be that testing period, and it's a challenging world to be in. But for a lot of people coming out of college, if we're not teaching them one side of the business or bringing them into this world, then we see a lot of turnover within the industry. And, it kind of goes to all of the negativity that surrounds our industry anyway. And you find the people who do really well, it's like, they're making tons and tons of money, but they don't necessarily care about what they're doing. That doesn't do anything for the industry. So it sounds like you guys have a really a fresh approach in just terms of like the culture. I mean, I don't hear the types of things that you're describing in a lot of recruitment agencies. So like, you bring somebody on who's from outside another recruitment agency, what typically do they say, or like what's different, do you think, from maybe other recruitment agencies of town or different recruitment agencies in the industry? What are you doing primarily that's different?
Aside from the secret sauce involving data and whatnot, but I think like when we bring someone on, it's you've got the human headhunter there, right? Right under your name, or beside your name, I should say. It's about being human. And if I'm bringing someone on, it's about understanding their needs. It's the same thing you're doing when you're recruiting someone. You're just talking about one of the toughest conversations you didn't talk about for a recruiter to have is salary or rate. Somebody thinks that this was what their rate should be. And we know if we go in at that rate, or if we try to present someone at that salary, well, we're not going to either win the RFP, or the hiring manager is going to say, well, that's $20,000 over my budget, sort of thing, right? So those are the toughest conversations to have. And I think this is as much a strategy for management as it is for marketing or for day-to-day direction. Is just be human and treat people like you want to be treated. And I'll answer your question, but also like people watching right now who are in recruiting firms, think about this time we're in and spending that extra time with anyone. First of all, intrinsically, right? I would suggest to anyone to spend a bit of extra time helping someone with a resume, even though they're not being a candidate for you. Spending a bit of extra time with some coaching, anything you want. But also think about marketing. Okay, you want to think business instead of intrinsic? Great. So think about that Google review. So that candidate that you're spending a bit of extra time with, even though they're not the right fit, or even though it might take a bit more, and you don't know if that job's going to be open in 2 weeks, and you got to get someone now. Well, maybe that's a 5-star Google review, right? And that person who's giving you a call back, and you're not calling them back because they're not a right fit, that's a 1-star Google review. So think about yourself if you're in this situation looking for work. But then think about the business at the same time. You can do both at the same time. It's quite all right. It'll work, right? So to me, that answers part of your question. To me, I don't know what we do different, honestly, aside from just being ourselves and trying to be positive, trying to be relations, trying to give people a chance. When we my team is mostly on the account executive side now, and it's just sitting in and come sit in on my phone call. The beauty of this day and age now is if I can grab this iPhone and add someone to a call and say, hey, I've also got my colleague Justin here just in case I missed something, right? As I shout out Justin, hey, and they can learn from that phone call, and they might also go, Dan, why'd you say that? Or they might go, Dan, you missed this in your notes. Oh, that's great. That's a great way to train someone. Just take them with you, take them under your wing. And you said it, some people just don't care, right? They make that big money and they just kind of go from close to close. I don't think that's what we are. And I think we take that time to kind of try. We're not perfect. Like you're throwing us flowers. Thank you very much. But we're not perfect either, right? So it is a work in progress. And I'm sure we miss sometimes. I'm sure, but it's just coming to work and remembering, okay, everyone here is working for their home, for their family, for their own well-being, and they're working hard for the company. Therefore, how can I help them get to where they want to be? Somebody suggested, I haven't read it yet, I believe it's Dreamcatcher. That's a motivational book about how to manage people to get to their dreams. And that's what I want to be, right? There's nothing better than if that person goes, hey, I bought my first car, or I bought my first home, or hey, I bought an engagement ring, or anything of the sort. So that's how you motivate yourself, I think, as a leader. And I don't know if that's a secret sauce. I think being human kind of answers your whole question there.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think to me that it's a huge issue in our industry where, and it's just going back to like the high burnout, prioritizing dollars over people on all aspects of what we do, because obviously a lot of times we're on commission and we're commission only. And I think when you have those types of environments, everybody's aware that it's time and money and all these different types of things, but there's balance within that as well. And I think for like real long-term growth in this industry and how things are changing and how technology is changing and how things are a lot more accessible. I mean, I look at like the recruiting industry, even over the last 10 years, LinkedIn created an easy barrier of entry into the recruiting world, because there you have it, I spent 10 years building up an ATS. It's like LinkedIn is your ATS, or it gives you access to people that you just wouldn't have had 10 years ago. Yeah. And so it gives everybody that just equal barrier of entry. It doesn't matter if you've got a solid ATS. It makes it easier. And then anybody can be a recruiter. And so it increases that competition, but that makes it more stressful as well. And so it's refreshing to hear that. And I think, again, you hear a lot of companies say that, but the fact that you're growing, the fact that, even I love that quarterly idea of like, what can we do better? And like genuinely having that, I love that. I love the fact that there's that listening that goes on. And I think, that doesn't always happen within the industry. So I'm curious. I know we talked before the call, we were talking about like how you guys would, take out potential clients or whatever to maybe take them out to lunch, or you do these different types of things. So, and we just had mentioned, obviously a lot of that's changing and things are moving to more towards digital and online. So how are you guys like pivoting as far as like that digital networking? And I know you mentioned it a little bit with LinkedIn, but talk to me a little bit about that change and how you're kind of integrating that into what you're doing as far as marketing and networking with people.
Yeah, we're not doing enough, honestly. That's where we can we definitely identify as a growth. We don't have a marketing department. We don't have marketing individuals. It's kind of falling on my plate or the individual's plates. What we are doing is trying to train our individuals in utilizing LinkedIn connection requests and actually putting a message on your connection request. Just don't click to connect just there. That's a nice and simple, like how to increase. Building posts that aren't always, I'm looking for this, right? I'm looking for a Java developer. Yeah, they know you're looking for someone, okay? So those are nice once in a while, but sharing information, and that's what we try to do on our page is essentially share how to make people better. How can you improve your own LinkedIn page? That's one post we made. We had a nice one pager that people could take a look at. 5 tips, and it improves the hits on their LinkedIn page by, I think it was 20x was what we had there by the stats. So it's sharing that information and trying to connect more. You said it, like our ATS is jammed. And yet there's more and more information on LinkedIn, and we're adding more people from LinkedIn to our ATS, and it's just people say, oh, I have this many candidates in my ATS, and we're working, and it's just, okay, how can we access those candidates faster? How can we find the right candidate for this role faster using that data and AI, and then use our relationship, what we're good at, essentially. So that's been, we haven't done enough. Falls on my plate, but obviously wearing different hats at times.
On LinkedIn Live.
Yeah, well, there you go. So hey, I'm doing something right now, but yeah, no, it's something we got to do more of. It's definitely something we've identified as a growth, but letting our employees build their own brand and build it from there. And you and I might have this debate, but whether we always want it to kind of reflect our brand, right? So, and we don't want it to be anything controversial, anything of the sort. Obviously, let's not get reported to LinkedIn on anything, but letting them build it themselves. They all have a different style. We don't have templates for their graphics or anything like that. So we try. Some people are great at it. That's something I'll constantly coach on, because it's easy for me to grab a screen cap and go, hey, such and such, even though you're sitting at home, why don't you give me a call? Okay, I would have put a picture in this post. I would have used a bit of different language here. So it's easy for me to kind of coach an individual that way, but not, well, you should have written this, sort of thing. So that's been one aspect. When it comes to clients, we're kind of using the old aspect of like if we can send them a coffee gift card sort of thing, right? If we've got their email or different things like that, just although we can't make a coffee happen these days, go grab one on us sort of thing. So that's kind of more old school, which is funny, but it's kind of going back to those, like it's what we need. I think a lot of people have burnout about being on their laptops. So although LinkedIn's great when it comes to people in decision making roles, they're not used to be sitting in front of their laptops for 7.5, 8 hours a day, right? So they're used to being in boardrooms, they're used to being in front of their employees and different things. So it's a tough one. We're trying to put a balance, but we're trying not to do too much of one thing. We know we got to get better at our content strategy on LinkedIn. That's one piece, though, and
are you using any kind of like I'm just curious, like on Facebook, Instagram, like do you use like any kind of job ad strategy or paid ad strategy on there? Is that something you guys have taken a look at as well?
We have on Facebook for some larger contracts. We have tested it out. That's where we're now looking to see if we can get some assistance there, because we know that a dollar spent by us is probably spent in a better way by somebody else helping us. But we have at times utilized Facebook. We haven't utilized our Instagram too much. I find that's one where you almost want an individual more than the NewFound Recruiting brand. What can NewFound Recruiting, because you do that paid ad, but you have nothing on your own page, right? Because you don't have any pretty graphics or anything like that. It's a bit tougher to share things on your own Instagram page. So that's almost one where we've kind of talked about, okay, so does Dan build his own brand on Instagram and then it kind of reflects through there? So we don't have that one figured out in any way, shape, or form. That might be a conversation for you and I offline.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because I don't really do a lot on Instagram.
Yeah.
I mean, there's obviously there's so many directions you can go and so many things. And I think the important thing is if you're making steps forward just in the digital world, because I think within recruiting particularly, it's been so heavily focused on cold calling. And obviously cold calling is always the quickest way. Like if I can get somebody on the phone, that's the quickest way to get to a sale. But it's just understanding that, you have different channels to reach people, and having that brand is big. And I would say, like, to your point with encouraging the individuals in your company to kind of build their personal brands. And obviously you want to make sure everyone is on LinkedIn primarily to make money and business. I mean, that's why people are on there. There are definitely people I know who are on there for like fun and impact and those types of things. But I'd say like the majority of people, they want to promote their business. But it's just done in a slightly different way. And it is a social media network. So it's like you want to have that engagement. And so I love that approach, but obviously we want to tie it back to the business. We want to tie it back to the brand. And the goal is to use LinkedIn, to use different content to get people on the phone and to create that brand awareness. And so I don't think it's going away. Obviously I don't. That's kind of what I'm all about in some ways. But I think as long as you're making those steps forward and encouraging, I mean, obviously digital is just not going away. And I think that's it's very interesting to see within recruiting, because I think other industries have done really, really, really well adapting. But it's just recruiting is so heavily focused on the sales. But 20 years from now, it's hard for me to believe that the industry is going to look the same as it is today. Hard to believe any industry is going to look the same. So, super cool, man. Well, I don't want to. I think let's see how long we've been on live. So we've been here for about 40 minutes. Anything specifically that you would want to promote? Do you guys have any kind of like online events coming up, or anything that you guys are involved in that you'd want to highlight?
Honestly, we'll be doing more and more on our LinkedIn page on NewFound Recruiting. We're going to be doing a bit of video. You got to get a haircut here, but going to be putting out a bit more video there and trying to engage more individuals. And people in Canada mostly. Obviously, most of our roles are in Canada, mostly in the National Capital Region. So they can definitely check us out for if they're looking for work, or if they're looking. And Sean has a good question there that we can answer as well afterwards. But no, it's we're honestly, I'm here to kind of try to help out. My LinkedIn page is there under Dan Julian, NewFound Recruiting, but not here to promote too much aside from just taking care of each other at this point and making sure that everyone's there for kind of assistance and anything else.
Yeah, and let's look at what Sean said. What is the best platform to market on? Have you guys done any paid promotion on LinkedIn? What are your thoughts there?
So, I don't know. I listen to a lot of Gary Vee, and he tells me not to do it on LinkedIn. So no, we've done a bit on LinkedIn. It's been difficult to kind of find that right balance. As I said, we tried on Facebook. We're actually more successful. Here's the thing about LinkedIn is if you're doing it right, you should be accessing the right candidates, right? And where we might do a bit more paid promotions is when we need to increase our level of business development. But if you're doing the right searches and you're connecting and you're producing the right content, you should be getting to the right candidates instead of having them come inbound, which it's a beauty when it doesn't come inbound, believe me, but that's not our job, right? So, but yeah, so Facebook has been more helpful there in finding those passive candidates that we might not be able to find on LinkedIn. We've got a massive, and it could be different terms, help desk, service desk, whatever you want to call it, depending on where you are, contract. And I think we've talked to everyone in our region on LinkedIn. So that's where we kind of went to the other platforms like Monster and Facebook and different things and tried some different things because we had a large mandate and, ATS was fully tapped, LinkedIn was fully tapped. And I think the next steps here is kind of being proactive about those types of paid promotions. Sorry.
100%. And I think on LinkedIn, particularly like the paid ads, I think we're going to see more of those on the business side. Yeah. So I'm already seeing more of that where businesses are promoting. It's probably more to do with just LinkedIn. They want to bring in some more ad revenue. I'm sure, they let a lot of employees go, for example, this year because of COVID. So I think we'll see some more paid ads, but it's diversification all the time. And I think that's the part that even in recruiting, you learn it's you use LinkedIn, and then you also use email, and you also use phone calls, and it's diversification every time. And I know in certain industries, for example, like healthcare healthcare is not huge on LinkedIn, but you can find people through maybe like a national database or these different databases. So it's really being flexible, I think, Sean, and just figuring out like what works and testing things out. So maybe you run an ad on one platform to see how it is. Everything is testing, seeing what works, and things change. And I think that to me is a bigger issue, which is people understanding that everything changes. So you have to be willing to be flexible. Otherwise, it's just what worked 5 years ago. It's just not going to work 5 years from now. It's not going to work 10 years from now. Only way is just by experimentation. And it looks like Gina's got a question here too. What tool or platform do you suggest as an ATS, payroll, time sheet, a system that can do it all? I will let you handle this one.
So yes, it might be news to our current ATS, but we are transitioning to Bullhorn right now. We're in the migration. We value different things on the market, and they better give me a discount after this shout out. But no, we're going to Bullhorn. We haven't yet looked at their payroll and timesheet, but sorry, how would I say that? We evaluated, but we haven't yet looked at the sandbox or anything of the sort. So I don't want to speak to that. I know they have it. I know it looks good according to my account or controller. So that's what we're going to go ahead with, but we're not there yet on the sandbox or the migration. But that's where we're heading. When I was looking at the processes they have and the statuses and how they all head count and different things like that you can just we're building these dashboards off Excel and pivot tables and all those pretty things, and they've kind of got it all built in. So Bullhorn exactly is spelled like that, Gina. But yeah, so that's what we're heading into. We kind of did our evaluation of a few different ones and going to that one, but I don't know if you've experienced any lately, Joel, at all, or I know Bullhorn at times did a lot of modification, a lot of acquisitions over the last few years. So somebody who knows it from 5 years ago, it may not have been what it is today. That's for sure.
Yeah, and I think, the technology is just getting smarter. I know I worked with PC Recruiter before, and that was pretty cool. And just being able to, it made things just more efficient, and I was able to zap information. I was able to do some automation in there. Me personally, I'm a big fan of automating the tasks that don't involve other humans, and anything like bulk email, automated messages. I think you've got to be somewhat careful nowadays because everybody's doing it, and so to stand out, personalization wins. And then let's see, Sean just said, Joel Lalgee, can you connect with me? I am interested in talking with you. I'm in LinkedIn jail. I'm glad it was LinkedIn jail and not real jail.
Yeah, that's...
but yeah, we can do that. You're welcome. And Dan, I really appreciate you just hopping on the show, man. It's great to have you as a guest. And I would just encourage anybody that's in Canada, obviously, or do you guys do work in the U.S. as well? Or
we do work in the U.S., but obviously not as much as we do in our area here. So mostly in Canada. and
best place for people to find you.
LinkedIn. Just look up Dan Julian. I think it's Dan P Julian. The slash Dan P Julian. I should memorize that at some point, right? Or NewFound Recruiting. That's nice, easy to find. Best place to find me. I think my cell phone number is actually right on my page, just in case anybody wants to shoot me a text too. But yeah, it's all on there.
Awesome. And what I'll do is I'll tag you on this post too. So anybody just reach out to Dan, tag him, and it sounds like you're pretty. Or connect with him. It sounds like you're pretty open to just having conversation and connecting. And anything else before we go? Why don't we end it with 3 reasons of why you like Canada over the U.S.
Oh, geez, you're gonna get me in trouble.
You don't need to do that.
Can I say the Toronto Raptors #1, and then I'll leave it at that.
Right? Yeah. No. Awesome, man. Well, I appreciate it. Let's just leave. If there was one tip for somebody, because I know that somebody who's reached out to me recently who's just thinking about getting into recruiting. You were fresh from a different industry into recruiting. What's the #1 tip you would give somebody who's just starting recruiting today? And that would be my question for you.
My first one is always do the work, but that's an easy one, right? And the second one is be ready to spend the time. You're not always going to have the perfect mentor. You're not always going to find that perfect fit for yourself. Even that perfect person is a perfect mentor for everyone else in the company, it might not be for you. So be ready to spend the time and to work outside the 9 to 5 hours. And that's probably advice for any role, honestly. But if you're going to health recruiting, IT recruiting, sales recruiting, everything, there's so many different things to learn, whether it's experience with the CRM in sales or this type of sales in health. I can't even touch that, all the different aspects. And in IT, as we discussed, so many different technologies. So do the work. Be ready to spend a lot of time learning outside the hours, but go in with an open mindset. As long as you're doing the work from 9 to 5, you're doing everything you should be doing, the process will work as long as you're learning every single time, right? And you're going to make mistakes. I did. I'll admit to that, but I learned from each one, right? I hope I learned from each one at least. And but it's just that open mindset and spend those extra hours.
Awesome, Dan. Well, man, great to have you on the show. I love how laid back you are, and obviously you're super driven as well. Your track record speaks for itself, and really appreciate you jumping on. If you just stay tuned here, I'm going to end the broadcast in a moment. So just stay backstage. But everybody else, we have got a guest on Monday too, Kelsey Corey. She's in the real estate property management world, based out of Denver. She's going to be our guest on Monday. So tune in for that. And appreciate all you guys out there. It looks like we had about 9 or 10 people here, and just people coming in and out. So Gino, appreciate you for interacting. Sean, same with you. James, if you're still there, good to see you. Scott too, great to see you guys. So anyone else who is out there, we appreciate you, and stay tuned for Monday. We'll have another guest on the show.
Thank you very much, Joel.